Welcome to day 13 for the instant offer formula. Today I'm going to walk you why the old rules don't apply to wholesaling anymore. And if you use them, you're probably missing out on a lot of deals. I'm going to show you the simplest way to make an instant decision and calculate an offer for any motivated seller. But before I get into it, do me a favor, guys. It would really help me out a lot if you just smash that like button, hit that subscribe button so other people can find out the truth about wholesaling. So guys, there's three basic things you need to assimilate any offer on a wholesale deal. And although this information seems pretty simple to get, this is where most of the fusion comes in. Let's start with ARV, just a short acronym for after repaired value. Honestly, whatever the seller tells you, whatever Zillow tells you, whatever a realtor tells you, it's mostly extremely biased information for a perfect world scenario of what that property would be in its highest and best use. Honestly, it's mostly BS. Everyone shoots a high pie in the sky of what its potential is, what it is, and the reality is it rarely hits that number. So it's important for you to do your own evaluation and figure out what the ARV. No matter what percentage you go off of ARV, if it's wrong, it doesn't matter. So if I taught you to buy 75% off of ARV, which is more important, the 75%, the 70%, the 76%, or the ARV? Most sellers can manipulate the ARV and make it whatever they want. So why you guys spend so much time on getting the percentage right when the ARV is a lot of times anywhere from 10 to 25% off? Do you see how the games are played with the numbers? It is important on step one to make any offer on the property to identify the true ARV, and only you can do that. And you want to pick conservative numbers that have a common sense practicality to it. The next one is you got to understand is the word comp, and that's just short for comparables. And these are considered like type properties. It is important that you do the apples to apples matches. If you want to learn more on how to comp, go over to freewholesaling.com. I go into greater detail on it. But the reality is you have to comp properties that are similar in square footage under air, in the same similar neighborhood, and most importantly, the same geographical area. Rarely do I go outside of a mile when comping a property. And the really cool part is most properties built in a neighborhood are built by the same type of builder, and they usually have 3 to 5 options on building the home. And once you identify them, the game gets really easy. You have to get rid of your highest comp and your lowest comp so you can come up with an accurate average. And guys, make sure you're identifying homes that are extremely similar, meaning they were built during the same time period, the same type of construction, and the same area. In fact, comps are usually massively manipulated, anywhere from 10 to 30% higher. Guys, I've already established you can screw up a price on a property just from the comp and the ARVs up to 40 to 50% based on using other people's numbers. It's important for you to get your own comps. And number 3, which is really the fuzziest of all math when it comes down to calculating properties, is what are the repairs for the property? Listen, the reality is I'm not a contractor, you're not a contractor, nor do I expect you to be. But we have to come up with some general numbers to be able to set up a great offer. Now, I'm going to streamline this process to you. And if you go over to freewholesaling.com, I have a repair chart in there for you. And it's based on the square footage. And there's 3 categories. There's light rehab, there's medium rehab, and then there's heavy rehab, which is going to be an entire gut job. And it basically does a quick calculation for you. I purposely overestimate this tool so you can get the best deal possible. But the last thing I want you to do is spending hours and if not weeks, months trying to get contractors to give you bids. Honestly, they'll do it at the beginning, and after a while, once they figure out you're not going to spend the money because you and me aren't fixing up the property, they're not going to do it anymore. You're going to lose friends. People are going to avoid you like the plague. So go over to freewholesaling.com. We have the repair chart estimator in there, and it's really simple, and we update it about every 3 or 4 months. Now, when a seller tells me what the repairs are, honestly, I don't put a lot of stock into it. And whatever they tell me the number, I multiply it by 1.5 to 2 times because they're usually typically hiding stuff on it. They don't do it on purpose. They just don't know. And if you rely on a seller's estimate of what the repairs are, it's typically going to come in very light. If you rely on your cash buyers, what the repairs are, they're typically going to inflate them. Why? They both have an agenda. One's trying to sell the property for the most, one's trying to buy it for the least amount. and you're caught in the middle. So if you add up all three of these things and you aren't overly confused by now, you're thinking like, Rick, how the heck am I ever going to make an offer on a property if you're telling me these three variables are really all over the board, inflated? How am I supposed to make an accurate offer on it? Guys, this is where it gets really, really easy. In fact, I want you just to almost disregard what I just told you, because that is the old way of doing wholesaling. And guys, I've been doing this over 21 years. Yes, you do eventually need to know all three of these, but here is the catch. If I work with 100 potential prospects of properties I want to buy, the reality is 2 or maybe 4 of them will actually get past the initial qualification, meaning most of them will be disqualified. What am I telling you is, don't spend all your time trying to factor in all three of these variables until you determine the seller's motivation. You need to find people that need to sell their house and get rid of the people that just want to sell their house and get them off to a realtor as soon as possible. The reality is, most of you are just wasting your time. Why? It's simple. If I have 100 prospects and only 2 or 3 or 4 of them will ever entertain my offer, why go through this ridiculous process and waste all my time doing comps and calculations in ARV? In fact, this is what realtors do, guys. Wholesalers don't do this. Realtors will spend hours getting the perfect comp, the perfect ARV, and the perfect repairs to make the perfect list offer so they can get a yes. If you want to be a realtor, go ahead and knock yourself out. Think about that. If they spend over an hour with each one of those clients, and say you had 100 people, that's 100 hours. You're going to give up 2.5 weeks of working time in your life for maybe a potential deal or two? No, you've got to do it the opposite way. Here's the truth. This is the painful part of this. The reason why most of you want to get the comps, the ARVs, and the perfect repairs before you even meet with the seller, because you want certainty. You want to be guaranteed the numbers are accurate. Why? Because you don't want to get in the uncomfortable world. You want everything predetermined for you, and you want to determine and influence the outcome. Here's the reality. It doesn't work that way in wholesaling. You're going to have to take risk. Most of your offers are going to get rejected. Accept it now. In fact, if you guys listen to me and Zach, if you spend more than 10 minutes doing a comp, you're doing it wrong. It means you're searching for a biased answer if you spend more than 10 minutes. The data is the data. Look at it. Throw out the high, throw out the low, match apples to apples. That's the number. The longer you spend doing comps, it means you're trying to seek validation for your overpriced contract. There, I just hit you with the truth. I've been through this. I've been in your shoes. Stop comping sellers before you determine the motivation. Do they need to sell or do they want to sell? If they need to sell, go take the 10. I'll even give you 12 minutes to do everything and come up with just a rough range of numbers. And I'm going to save you hundreds, if not thousands of hours in your business, because I don't want you to be a realtor. I want you to be a wholesaler. Wholesalers do not dig deep into the numbers until we have mastered the art of determining if the seller is motivated, they need to sell their house versus wanting to sell their house. Once you do that, then all of a sudden, all your efforts focused on finding motivated sellers instead of talking to people that just want to sell their house. Though, if you're talking to a ton of people that don't want to sell your house, you need to reevaluate how you're doing your marketing. Go over to freewholesaling.com. I'll show you how to find a motivated seller. But for God's sakes, please stop this yo-yo effect of trying to get every perfect number, spend countless hours doing comps, ARVs, and repair costs. Once you determine the motivation, now let's move forward and show you how to make a real offer in wholesaling. The reality is most of you still cling to this 70% rule. And the old school thought when I started in wholesaling back in 2003 is, Rick, just pay 70% of ARV and minus off repairs, add in your assignment fee, and that's what you make the offer. Guys, I can get an AI robot to do that. Like, that is not how you make deals. In fact, even back in 2003, I would have done very few deals if I followed that formula. Why? Because it's an idiot's formula. That's like saying, if you see a Rolex for $3,000 out there, go ahead and buy it. I think you'll make money. Listen, the reality is you buy any property at 70% minus repairs, minus your assignment fee, you're going to make a ton of money. I don't care what anybody says. But you're going to have to use a little bit more of that brain when it comes to wholesaling, because if you think it's just one size fits all, you're nuts. Listen, you might do a deal or two, but it's a lot of years are going to go in between. And I'm telling you, if I followed that formula, I wouldn't be in front of this camera talking to you today. In fact, think about the 70% rule. With real estate going up and basically being worth quadruple what it was when I started. The bigger the number gets, the more exaggerated the percentages are. Meaning, if I had a $50,000 house and I was buying it at 70% of value, that'd be around $35,000. Yeah, it works on the lower totem pole. But guys, the world has changed since I started in 2003. I've gotten older. My kids have given me gray hair and the values have quadrupled. Now, let's look at a $400,000 house. Maybe you're in a little bit more aggressive market, 70%. $280,000. You're not even going to get in the door with that offer. In fact, I guarantee you are not going to be wholesaling in that market. The disparity in percentages grows as the numbers grow. And since we're in a new market since early 2000, numbers are much more aggressive. They're higher. And that 70% rule is now more outdated than ever. Please don't follow it. Here's how you need to figure out how to make an offer on a property. I'm going to show you how to do the instant offer. But before I get into it, throw the 70% out the window. It doesn't work. Rule number one is risk versus reward. That's how I write every wholesale deal, and that's how you should do it. What is my risk? What is my reward? High risk, high reward. So, wholesaling is low risk, but you got to be really resourceful and you're going to have to use that brain. Think about this. If I have a property I'm buying for $180,000, like that's the max the seller will go. And we all have situations, seller goes 180, that's it. You've hit the bottom line, you've gone for the no, and you're there. The reality is, do you want to move forward with that deal or not? Well, let me explain this. If you build a robust cash buyers list, and remember, it's about quality, not quantity. If you want to learn more how to do that, go over to freewholesaling.com. Is once you have that list and you find someone that wants to buy that type of property, you already have an appetite for where they want to buy, the types they want to buy, the money, the price points they want to buy. All you have to do is really get that buyer to come up a little bit. Maybe the buyer comes up to 185. Maybe your seller takes a slight discount at like 176, 175, and voila. You make close to $10,000 or $10,000 on the deal. Now, did I tell you to do a multiply or figure out a percentage? No. You had low risk and a great reward with it. Why not take it? Why would you turn that deal down? Under the old 70% rule, you couldn't do those deals. I've done over 2,000 deals just like that. It adds up. Not everything is a home run in wholesaling, but the most important factor when figuring out your instant offer is what is your risk? If your risk is minimal to none, go for it. When I mean go for it doesn't mean write a contract and figure it out later. Find a cash buyer that you have intel, you've worked with them, you've already vetted, not another wholesaler, and see if you can put deals together. In fact, this is where me and Zach teach you how to do reverse wholesaling. As I said earlier, some sellers are just stuck on a certain price, and sometimes you can only take them so far. But if I have a property worth, say, $100,000, and the buyer's like, listen, I can't do anything less than $86,000, and the numbers just don't work out for you, it doesn't mean your deal's over. It means you go back and access your cash buyers list, and you do reverse wholesaling. Reverse wholesaling is getting your cash buyer to just come up a little bit, have your seller go down a little bit. You haven't even written the contract at this point. And if you can get them to commit without giving the address by doing intel and verifying your cash buyers and get your seller to wiggle a little bit, you can put $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 deals together all day long. But if you follow the 70% offer formula, you're going to be sitting around twiddling your thumbs until the perfect deal comes around. And honestly, it's probably not going to keep you in business in wholesaling. So now that you understand the risk versus reward, let's get into the instant offer. Guys, here's the reality. Most sellers that we work with understand that they don't want to work with a realtor, so that's 6% right off the bat. They understand closing costs are going to be about another 2%. There's usually a 2 or 3% negotiation rate, and the reality is there's always like 5% of hidden repairs in these deals. The bottom line is, on average, 15 to 16% discount is kind of built in with people that have problems with their house. So let's think about this. If you have a $100,000 house and they already go, listen, I don't want to pay a realtor fee, I get the closing cost and a little bit of negotiations, right off the bat, you're looking at about a 12% reduction. So that puts a seller around 87, 88% of fair market value. I get it. That number alone is not enough to make me excited, but here's the really cool part. Here is the sweet instant offer formula. It's going to be anywhere from 75% to 83%. How do I know this? Because I've done over 3,000 transactions. I got 21 years experience doing it. That's where the meat of my instant offers come with all sellers. Now, I don't sit there and just navigate just off the percentage off of ARV. First and foremost, I calculate what is my risk. How much risk am I taking? And honestly, if my risk is very minimal, I got a great inspection period, a low deposit, go for it, man. Listen, I don't want to back out of contracts, but I will work my butt off to get a deal. And some of you are struggling to get deals because you don't want to take any risk. The reality is, if a seller's going to reach out to you and you're already at 87 to 88% of the ARV, and I already told you the sweet spot for the instant offer is 75 to 83%, you only got to walk them down 4 or 5%. That is easy. But when you have to go on MLS, find a property that's already overpriced 10 to 15%, and you got to walk them all the way down to 83% and get a starting point, you understand why I focus on motivated sellers on off-market properties direct to seller. Because if I have them coming in the door around 87, 88%, I know I can probably do a deal somewhere in the low 80s with them. And honestly, that is the art of negotiation. If you use the skills me and Zach teach over at freewholesaling.com, we teach you how to build rapport, how to have amazing conversations, and you only got to close the gap on like 5%. But most of you think you got to close the gap on 30 to 40%, and honestly, you're probably not going to survive under that umbrella. So let me review how the instant offer system works. Number one, stop over comping properties. Stop trying to figure out the perfect area and stop trying to figure out the repairs with general contractors or anything like that. It's so important that you understand that. Now, the next step is identify the motivation of the seller. Are they motivated? Do they need to sell or do they want to sell? If they need to sell, then go ahead and do a simple comp, ARV, and repair cost. The repair cost is inside of freewholesaling.com. The comps, less than 10 minutes, apples to apples. And the ARV, just use some common sense with it. It's really simple to figure this out. But all three will put your number together, and that sweet spot is anywhere from 75, maybe 76 to 83. Why? I have the statistical data to back it up. And most importantly, when you go to make your instant offer, look at your risk. If the seller won't let you assign the property, they want a big fat deposit and a tiny inspection period, your risk is high. If you can put in a small deposit, have a big inspection period, and you have a robust cash buyers list, then go ahead and put it under contract and then get your cash buyer to pay a little bit more. And then eventually you can squeeze your seller to just take a slight reduction, and you can put $10,000 deals together on a weekly basis. How do I know this? I've been doing this 21 years, guys. Not every deal is a home run. The two most important things to this is identify the motivation and identify your risk. And guys, most importantly, if you go over to freewholesaling.com, if you want to learn how to easily negotiate with any seller with little to no experience, we're going to teach you the go for no method, which seems weird, seems really uncomfortable, but man, does it get results. Why? Because I figured this out while I was doing wholesaling, and I simplified it for anybody getting started in wholesaling. And not only does this work for beginners, it works for advanced senior people just like me. Why? Because it takes your ego out of negotiations and makes it simplified and gets you a direct result sooner than later. If you guys want to learn more techniques just like this, go over to freewholesaling.com, where we show you not only how to get your first deal, we show you how to get to your first $100,000. And guys, it's up to you. Either decide to be a wholesaler, get into the instant offer formula, and make this business simple. Stop complicating it. Guys, listen, if you got value from today, do me a favor. Make sure you smash that like button, hit that subscribe button so other people can figure out how to use the instant offer to actually be successful as a wholesaler. Guys, this is Rick in with day 13 of the instant offer system. I'll see you guys soon.